Progressive supine groin is the topic of today's video. And this is a great stretch. Some call it the bread and butter of postural therapy or of the Egoscue method, because it is such a crucial aspect for so many different types of postures in terms of getting those tight hip flexors or unbalanced hip flexors to perform equally from left to right, and also to relieve pressure on the back. Now, the hip flexors are a super important muscle in the body. They're the only muscle in the body that connects the upper body to the lower body, meaning going from the spine all the way through the pelvis, connecting to the legs. The only muscle in the body that does that is the psoas. The psoas muscle connects all the way up through all your lumbar vertebrae and also attaches at the inside of your femur, just below where your femur goes into the hip. Now, there are two ways that you can perform this exercise. The first way is with a block or a bench and an ottoman and this specialized device here called a multi-positioning tower, or the Egoscue tower it's sometimes called. And I'll have a link in the description below where you can purchase one of these. If you're serious about becoming pain-free and getting your posture into being in a perfect alignment, this is a pretty crucial tool. But, you can't just all of a sudden have that, right? If you have just a step ladder at home, just one of these standard step ladders that with two levels on it like this one here, well, you can also get started on that exercise and get at least some of the benefits. Now, obviously, this is only going to have three positions: the top step, the middle step, and ground level. This has 6 different positions: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's also 2 different pedals that I'll show you in just a bit. In today's video, we're just going to be talking about the single pedal. There's also a double pedal. I'll show them both once I get them in my hands here. But this is going to be a great place for you to start if you're looking to get those hip flexors to open up, just release, and it can alleviate tons of different types of pain. It's great for lots of different menus. All right, so as promised, I will be getting into how to do the progressive supine groin stretch, both with a step ladder that you might have around your house, as well as the Egoscue tower. I'm going to go over the step ladder first, just because that might be more immediately useful to most people if you don't already have the tower. But I'm also going to be covering why the step ladder is really not the ideal solution, and why this tower is much better. So to start with, we need to have a setup similar to this. Now I'm going to be putting my leg that's not being stretched on a bench or chair, a block, an ottoman. Notice that I've just got a 90-degree angle at the hips, 90-degree angle at the legs. So that's really the height, that's the height you want, whatever that is for your body. The rest of the stretch is pretty simple. I'm going to put my leg on top, I'm going to let my arms rest out at about 45 degrees, palms up, and I'm going to stay in this position. Now, how long will I stay in this position? The rule of thumb is 3 to 5 minutes if you're in a hurry, but there is an objective way to measure how long you're in this position. We want to wait until the lower back has become flat against the floor. Now, if your back is flat against the floor immediately in every position, I'll talk about that at the end of the video. Stay tuned for that. Or you can skip ahead. I've got chapters down below. Now, why is this not ideal? Well, for starters, it's not very comfortable. This hard edge does not feel good on the feet. But also, it's really crucial that my foot remain pointed straight towards the ceiling here. I don't want it to droop out to the sides, because that is going to negate the entire stretch that we're performing on our psoas muscle. The psoas muscle, again, attaches at the femoral head here. So if the foot is pointed straight up, that muscle is being stretched. If I let it droop down, well, that muscle has just become contracted to some degree, completely negating the stretch we're trying to achieve. Now, you can try to compensate for that a bit by placing like a block or something there, but it's really just going to serve as a reminder. You can end up pushing it and stuff, you know, just like that. It's just that easy to move it. So this really is not ideal. Also, I covered how the Egoscue tower has 6 positions, right? Well, what have we got here? Only 3. I've got one here, I've got one here, and my foot, for me, my feet are so big I can't even really use this because without moving my whole bench and everything so that my toes don't hit that. And then I've got this where I can just move it away or put it on the floor. So I'm missing out on a full half of the levels that I really want to be hitting in order to get the full effect of this stretch. Now, and you would wait at every level until that lower back flattens. And that lower back flattening, why are we waiting for that? Well, as I mentioned earlier, your hip flexors also attach, your psoas muscle attaches to the lumbar vertebrae. And if those vertebrae are, if there's an arch near your lower back, that means that the attachment points on those vertebrae have not relaxed. That whole muscle hasn't relaxed. That's what's causing that arch in the lower back. Once that lower back goes flat, we know that that hip flexor must have released at that level to whatever degree it's able to at that time. And let's get into the Egoscue tower now. Actually, one more quick thing. Of course, you're not going to do this just on one leg. You would do this on one leg, then the other. So if you, let's say it's 5 minutes per leg, or 5 minutes per level that you're able to do right now, you would do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 15 minutes per leg, 30 minutes for the whole stretch. And that goes up once you get to more levels. Like on the tower here, if we're doing 5 minutes per level, obviously it can go a lot longer. But I want to stress that this is not a race to the bottom. If it takes 20 minutes for your low back to flatten on the first level, and that's all you have time for that day, well, and do the same on the other leg, that's fine. If you go down to the next level before that back flattens, you really are just wasting your time. Your time is better spent staying until your back flattens at each level. Okay, now, here's my tower. I mentioned before there are 2 pedals. We have the single pedal, which we'll be talking about today, and the double pedal, which I'll also be making videos on. I've already got one up, actually. I'll put that in the cards and the description down below. That video specifically focuses on hyperextension of the knee. It's not a general video about everything you can do with the double pedal. But the single pedal is pretty much always used for this type of exercise here. And what are we going to do? First, I recommend putting on a sock just because this Velcro strap is not the most comfortable. Okay, once we got the sock on, it's really simple to put this pedal on. We're just going to place it, pull this. You see how this strap here can go down? You want to pull that until it's over your heel. That's why it adjusts for different heel heights, but you want to pull it up until it's over your heel. And then pull this Velcro strap. Now, you don't want this to be so tight that it's going to cut off air or blood circulation or anything like that. Remember, you're going to be in this position for quite some time. Next, now it does take some kind of finagling to figure out the right height for you. Speaking of height, you see I've got this folded rug on my bench here. That helps make it the perfect height for me because the bench itself is too low. So that's just one more tip about getting into this position. Now, okay, I'm a little too far away. When you first start doing this, you're going to want to maybe have someone else there to help you, especially if you're in pain. When I first started, I was in a wheelchair and had lots of pain problems. I usually had to have my parents help me get into this stretch. But once you're here, it functions the same as the step ladder. Now, I've got my palms facing the ceiling. I've got my arms at about 45 degrees, just relaxing the upper body. Now, this is the big advantage of the tower. Remember I was talking about that problem with the foot drooping. Well, here, there's no way that's happening. My foot is locked into place. Also notice my foot is being put into dorsiflexion, meaning that it's forcibly bringing those toes towards my head by way of where that dowel rests in the rack. So this is really engaging the muscles along the top of the thigh more, along the front of the shins, and we are releasing the muscles along the back of the leg and releasing the psoas muscle. So I would stay in this position until my back flattens. If that's 3 minutes, if that's 5 minutes, if that's 20 minutes, I don't care. It's not a race to the bottom. I can't stress that enough. I might flash those letters on the screen here. We are not racing to the bottom. We are waiting until that curve in the spine dissipates. Now, because I do this stretch on a fairly regular basis, I don't have to wait too long. It'll usually flatten pretty quickly for me. But I would just go down a level, and then I'd wait for the same thing here. And as you can see, this is a lot more granular. So if, say on the step ladder, my top level released after like 5 to 10 minutes, and I go down to the next level, well, that's like skipping those next 2 levels essentially. And if my hip flexors aren't ready for that much of a decrease, I might get stuck at this level for longer than it would take to wait for that decrease at this level, and then wait for that decrease in the curvature of the spine at this level, and then get to this level. So I could potentially get to this level faster using the tower, even though it's about the same height as as using the step ladder. So just because there's fewer steps doesn't mean that you're saving time. You could actually be spending more time on the step ladder. And eventually I would work my way all the way down to the bottom level. And then of course I would repeat that on the other leg. And then sometimes I like to spend a little more time here. Actually, I do have a little bit of a curve in my spine here, so I probably need to do that with this leg today after I finish this video. I mentioned earlier, what if you get into this stretch and your back is already flat against the floor immediately? Well, I would be willing to bet that when you stand up, you've got what's called a condition 3 posture, or a posterior pelvic tilt in a C-shaped spine rather than an S-shaped spine, meaning that even when you stand, you don't have that was supposed to be a natural curve in the lower back. In that case, you want to use the modification of these cervical rolls, or you can use rolled up towels. Now, I really prefer these cervical rolls. They're softer, they're more comfortable to me, and these stretches should really be all about comfort. If something hurts, you're probably doing it wrong. So, or you're just not ready for that exercise yet. And we can use these to help promote that natural S-curve of the spine. So, I could put one of these underneath my lumbar spine, and looks like the tower got moved a bit when I was shuffling around earlier, so here's a little trick too. If it's too far away for the top level, you can often find a lower level that you can reach, and then pull it towards you, and boom, now I can reach the top tower. But then I would put this cervical roll underneath my neck as well, because that's the S curve of the spine. You should have a concave curve in the lower back, convex curve in the thoracic spine, then a slightly concave curve in the cervical spine. And I would sit here, and in this case, what I'm probably going to be looking for, obviously my back's never going to really flatten against the ground, right? There's a thigh test you can do. Now, you're going to contract the muscles in the thigh, and if they initially, when you feel that contraction, it'll probably almost all be happening in the lower thigh and not so much in the upper thigh. But you can wait until that contraction is happening more evenly across the muscles, or even being felt more so in the upper thigh than the lower thigh. And so that would be the more objective test we use for when it's time to go to the next level, if you're in this case where you need these towels or cervical rolls to support that curve of the spine. And it would be the same thing. I wait until I achieve that difference in contraction, that change in thigh contraction that I'm looking for. Then I would progress down a level and so on. And that's really all there is that you need to know about the progressive supine groin stretch. I know this was a bit of a longer video, but this is such an important stretch for so many people. It has so much potential benefit for so many people that I really wanted to go deep into the details to make sure that you could understand everything you needed.